Have you ever had a conversation with someone that left you feeling lighter, warmer, like you truly mattered, even just for a moment? Maybe it was the way they looked you in the eye, or how they remembered something small you once said weeks ago. Whatever it was, it made you feel special. And let's be honest, after 60, when the world can sometimes feel like it's moving faster without us, moments like those, they're rare. But here's the good news. You can be that person for others. You can become the one who lights up a room, not by being loud or overly polished, but by using a few simple, genuine habits that bring out your natural charm. Now, when we say charm, we're not talking about being slick or phony. We're talking about the kind of charm that makes people feel seen, heard, and cared for. The kind that doesn't fade with age, but grows stronger because it's built on wisdom, presence, and life experience. And let me tell you something. People our age, we have an edge. We've lived. We know what matters. And we know how much it means to feel valued in a world that sometimes overlooks those who've been around the longest. Today, we're going to talk about 6 habits that don't just make you more likable. They make people feel special just by being around you. Not because you're putting on a show, but because you're learning how to make those around you feel truly seen, and that is a rare gift. Let's begin with something that might sound small, but holds surprising power: using someone's name the right way. You've probably heard that using someone's name in conversation can make them feel more connected to you. And it's true. Our names are deeply tied to our identity. When someone says our name in a warm, respectful way, it's like a tiny light goes on in our brain. It tells us, hey, you matter. You're not just another face in the crowd. But here's where a lot of people get it wrong. They overdo it. They think that by saying, Linda, you're right, or well, Tom, what do you think, Tom? Over and over, it makes them sound more personal. But in reality, it can feel forced. Even worse, it can come across as manipulative, like someone read a book on how to be likable and is just checking off a box. I remember years ago I was at a dinner party where a gentleman kept tossing my name into every sentence. At first I smiled politely, but by the 3rd or 4th time I started feeling like he wasn't really talking to me. He was performing. And I'll be honest, it made me tune out. That's not charm. That's salesmanship. The real magic happens when you use a person's name with intention. When you drop their name in a moment of sincerity, like when you're making a point that matters, or when you're acknowledging something they said that touched you, it lands differently. It feels thoughtful, personal, real. Instead of saying, I agree with you, Mary, 10 times in one chat, you simply say, Mary, I've been thinking about what you said earlier, and it really stuck with me. That one moment of recognition, it can do more than a dozen scattered mentions, because it shows that you're not just using their name, you're valuing them. Let's move to the next habit that might be even more powerful than words: the way you listen. Not just hearing someone out, I mean really, truly listening. You'd be surprised how many people walk through life just waiting for their turn to speak. Conversations today often feel like a tennis match. Back and forth, each person swinging their point across the table, hoping it lands. But you know what people are really craving, especially as they grow older? To be heard. Not debated. Not fixed. Just heard. I remember one afternoon, sitting on the porch with a neighbor. She'd just lost her husband, and I could see the weight she was carrying. She wasn't looking for advice. She wasn't asking me to fix her pain. She just needed someone to sit there and hold space for her story. So I did. I didn't interrupt. I didn't steer the conversation toward my own experiences. I just listened. Fully. And by the end of it, she took a breath, smiled through her tears, and said, I didn't know how much I needed this. That moment wasn't about me at all. It was about her. And yet, I walked away feeling deeply connected too. You see, when you listen with your whole heart, people feel it. They don't just feel heard, they feel important. And in a world where so many people feel invisible, especially as they age, being the person who truly listens. That's a gift they'll never forget. You don't need to fix everyone's problems. You don't need to offer advice unless they ask. Sometimes all it takes is eye contact, a quiet nod, and an open presence to make someone feel like they matter. Listening this way isn't always easy, especially if you're naturally someone who wants to help. You may feel the urge to jump in with a story or offer a solution right away. But just pause. Give them room. Let them speak all the way through. And if you do respond, do it with curiosity instead of correction. Ask, "How did that make you feel?" Or, "What happened next?" Those kinds of questions show you're not just biding your time, they show you're invested in their truth. Now let me share a little secret that might surprise you. Sometimes the most charming thing you can do in a conversation isn't what you say at all. It's knowing when to end it. Think about the last time someone lingered just a little too long. Maybe a phone call that dragged after all the good parts were done. Or a visit that stretched past its natural close. It leaves a strange taste, doesn't it? You remember the awkwardness, not the warmth. That's why knowing how and when to end a conversation is an art form. And it's one of the most underrated habits of truly charming people. You don't have to be the last one standing at the party. In fact, people remember you more when you leave on a high note. When you wrap up a conversation while everyone's still smiling, still engaged, still energized, that's when your presence becomes memorable. It's like leaving the theater before the credits roll. It keeps people wanting more. I learned this the hard way. Years ago, I had a wonderful talk with a new acquaintance at a community event. We laughed, we connected, it was great. But I didn't know when to leave. I kept hanging around, thinking more time meant a better bond. But the energy dipped, the momentum slowed, and by the end, we were both looking for the exit. I didn't ruin the connection, but I certainly didn't leave it shining. And I never forgot that feeling. These days, I've learned that sometimes the most respectful, magnetic thing you can do is say, "It's been so lovely talking to you. I'm going to step away now, but I hope we chat again soon." It's graceful, it's confident, and it shows you value both your time and theirs. People don't remember every word you say, but they do remember how you leave them. Make sure it's with warmth, not awkwardness. So far, we've talked about the power of names, the beauty of real listening, and the impact of a well-timed goodbye. And all of these have one thing in common. They're about making people feel like they matter. Not with big gestures or flashy talk, but with presence, with intentionality, and with heart. Let's keep going. Because there's even more to explore in how charm, real, thoughtful charm, can make people feel special around you. One of the most touching things I've learned over the years is that people don't always remember your exact words, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And sometimes, what makes the biggest impact isn't what you say in the moment, but what you remember long after the conversation ends. Think back for a second. Has anyone ever brought up something small you mentioned weeks or even months earlier? Maybe it was a passing comment about your favorite dessert or how your knees ache when the weather changes. And then one day, they show up with your favorite pie or ask how your knees are holding up. It's not about the pie. It's about the fact that they remembered. It makes you feel seen. That's the fourth charming habit I want to share with you. Remembering the little details. Not the obvious things like someone's birthday or job title. I mean the subtle things most people forget. The kind of details that fly under the radar in everyday conversations, but reveal something deeper when remembered. I'll never forget a time when I mentioned in passing to a friend that I loved the smell of jasmine. It wasn't a big deal, just part of a story I was telling. Weeks later, she gave me a small bar of jasmine soap she'd picked up during her vacation. That small gesture meant the world to me, not because of the gift itself, but because it told me I wasn't just background noise. She had actually listened. And that's the point. When you remember the small things, you're telling people, "You matter to me. I'm paying attention." It doesn't take a perfect memory or a journal full of notes. It just takes being present. You can even make a quiet habit of jotting things down after a conversation if you're worried about forgetting. A simple note that says, "Jim's favorite tea is Earl Grey," or "Linda's thinking of adopting a dog." These details can be seeds for future conversations and powerful tools for connection. Because here's the truth. We live in a world that often feels rushed, noisy, distracted. When you take the time to remember something that most people overlook, it cuts through all that noise like a warm spotlight. It shows that you value not just the person, but the moments they've chosen to share with you. Now, I want to shift gears for a moment, because this next habit might surprise you. In fact, it might even feel a little uncomfortable at first. But stay with me. It's one of the most powerful ways to create genuine connection without ever losing yourself in the process. I'm talking about being vulnerable, but in a calculated way. Let me explain. Vulnerability isn't about spilling your deepest secrets or telling every stranger your life story. It's not about being weak or dramatic. True vulnerability is about letting your guard down just enough to let someone in. It's showing your human side, the side that's made mistakes, faced challenges, learned hard lessons, and doing it in a way that feels natural and safe. Now, when I say calculated vulnerability, I don't mean fake. I mean intentional. It's about choosing when and how to share something personal in a way that brings you closer to someone without handing over the steering wheel of your life. I remember a time at a volunteer event when a man asked me how I stayed so calm under pressure. Instead of giving a rehearsed answer, I told him about a tough experience I went through in my 40s, how I had panicked and made some poor decisions, and how that taught me to slow down and breathe through the hard stuff. I didn't go into every detail. I didn't turn it into a therapy session. But that small window into my real life shifted our whole dynamic. He opened up about something he was struggling with, and by the end of that afternoon, we'd built a connection that felt honest and strong. The key is that I chose what to share, and I shared it with purpose, not to impress or get sympathy, but to relate. To show that behind the smiles and the confidence, I'm still learning and growing, just like everyone else. That kind of vulnerability builds trust, and trust is the foundation of charm. But let me be real with you. Oversharing too soon, or with the wrong intention, can actually have the opposite effect. It can make people feel overwhelmed or uncomfortable. It can even come across as self-centered, especially if it seems like you're looking for pity or attention. That's why timing, tone, and context matter so much. A good rule of thumb: share a piece of your story when it helps someone feel less alone. When your experience can give someone hope, or simply show them they're not the only one with scars. Vulnerability should be a bridge, not a spotlight. It should bring people closer, not make them step back. And you know what else? When you allow people to see a small crack in the armor, just enough to show you're human, it gives them permission to do the same. It opens the door to deeper, richer conversations. And those are the ones that stick. Those are the ones people remember. So, if you're ever wondering whether to share that little story, that challenge you've overcome, or even a moment of doubt, pause and ask yourself, will this help them feel more connected? Or am I just trying to fill the silence? That pause can make all the difference. Now let's talk about a habit that may seem counterintuitive at first, but it's a favorite of mine. One that makes people lean in a little closer, feel a little more intrigued. It's the art of asking deep questions, but not always answering them yourself. You see, most people love talking about themselves, especially when the topic is meaningful, but they rarely get the chance to go beyond surface-level chit-chat. So when someone comes along and asks them something like, "What's one thing you wish people really understood about you?" they light up. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. But here's where the charm comes in. After you ask the question, you don't immediately jump in with your own answer. You hold back gently with grace. You give them the full stage. You let them talk, reflect, maybe even surprise themselves with what they share. And when they turn the question back to you, you smile and say, "That's a good question. I'm still figuring that one out." Or you simply nudge the conversation further. "Tell me more about what made you say that." That tiny move, keeping a bit of mystery, creates an emotional rhythm that draws people in. You're showing that you care, that you're present, that you want to know them. But you're also reminding them, you're not an open book all at once. You're someone with depth, someone they want to get to know. I once met a woman at a community center who had a quiet confidence about her. She'd ask you thoughtful questions that made you stop and think, but she rarely gave away much about herself. Not in a distant or cold way, but with calm curiosity. People adored her. Why? Because she made them feel fascinating. And because they always left the conversation wanting more. That's charm. You don't have to be mysterious in a dramatic way. Just don't rush to fill every gap. Leave space. Ask with genuine interest. Let people open up without feeling like it's a trade. It's not about withholding who you are. It's about pacing what you reveal and choosing the right moment to share more. By creating that space, you become someone people associate with depth, safety, and intrigue. And most of all, you become someone who makes them feel special, because you've taken the time to see them, hear them, and honor their story. And isn't that what we all want, really? To feel special, to feel like we matter, and to be around people who help us remember that, even on the days we forget it ourselves. The older I get, the more I realize that charm isn't some big, flashy personality trait. It's not about having the perfect words or a rehearsed smile. It's about creating quiet moments of connection, those small, thoughtful gestures that leave a lasting impression. And the best part? You don't have to change who you are to be that person. You just have to lean into the parts of yourself that know how to make others feel important. We've talked about listening deeply, remembering the little things, using someone's name with care, showing vulnerability with wisdom, and asking meaningful questions without always needing to answer them. These habits are simple, but they're powerful. And there's one more I'd love to share with you, something that ties all the others together in a way that feels effortless once you get the hang of it. It's the habit of truly choosing people. Not because you have to, or because it looks good on the outside, but because you want to. When you make someone feel like they're not just another person in the room, but the only person in the room in that moment, it changes everything. Think about the last time someone made you feel like you mattered more than the clock, more than their phone, more than the next thing on their to-do list. Maybe it was a grandchild who looked up at you, wide-eyed and curious, not rushing to get back to their game. Maybe it was a friend who sat with you in silence when you didn't have the words. Or maybe it was a stranger, someone you barely knew, who listened with such calm presence that it made your shoulders drop and your breath slow. Those moments stay with us. And they're not accidents, they're choices. You don't need hours. You don't need grand gestures. Sometimes all it takes is a look, a nod, a simple, "I'm here with you." These are habits we can all cultivate, no matter our age, energy, or circumstance. And the older we get, the more value those moments seem to carry. I know life can feel lonely sometimes. The phone doesn't ring as often. Friends move, family gets busy, the world seems to spin a little faster than it used to. But here's the thing. Connection isn't about waiting for someone to come knocking. It's about being the person who opens the door, who makes others feel welcomed, appreciated, and loved. You have the power to do that every single day. With the grocery store clerk who's having a tough shift, with the neighbor walking past your gate, with your children, your old friends, or even someone new. These habits don't cost anything, but their impact is priceless. I once heard a beautiful saying, "People may forget what you said, they may forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." And isn't that what we want most? Not to be remembered for perfection, but for kindness, for presence, for warmth. for making someone's day a little brighter, their burden a little lighter. You don't have to be the center of attention to be unforgettable. In fact, it's often the quietest people, the ones who give their full focus to those around them, who make the biggest impact. And the best part is, you don't have to pretend to be anyone else. You just need to be intentional with who you are. If you take anything away from this conversation, let it be this. Charm is not about being liked by everyone. It's about creating real, human moments. Moments where someone walks away thinking, "That felt good. I felt seen." That's the magic. That's what keeps people coming back. Not because you wowed them with words, but because you reminded them of their own worth. So whether you're heading to a coffee meetup, talking with family over dinner, or simply passing someone on the sidewalk, remember these simple habits. Call them by name at just the right moment. Listen like there's nowhere else you'd rather be. Recall that little detail they thought no one noticed. Share something true, but with grace. Ask the deeper questions and give them space to answer. And above all, make the choice to really see them. Because people don't want perfection. They want presence. And you? You have a lifetime of wisdom, empathy, and heart. You've learned what matters. You've seen what doesn't. And now, you get to use all of that to build connection, one moment at a time. So keep showing up. Keep listening. Keep surprising someone by remembering the thing they didn't think you'd remember. And most importantly, keep being you. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one way someone made you feel special? Or what habit have you used to connect with someone that really worked? Your stories matter, and they just might help someone else reading them today. If this video spoke to you, give it a like and subscribe to our channel, Strong Elderly Life. We've got plenty more conversations, insights, and gentle encouragement coming your way. Because no matter your age, your voice, your presence, your wisdom, it all still matters. Maybe more than ever. Thank you for spending this time with me. Here's to living with heart, to connecting with intention, and to making people feel special. Not because we're trying to impress them, but because we see their value, and we want them to feel it too. Take care of yourself. Take care of those around you. And never underestimate the power of kindness, presence, and a little bit of charm. You're not invisible. You're unforgettable. We'll talk again soon.